Hey, what's up everyone? It's Emily and welcome back to my channel. It is basically halfway through December, so I thought that most of the videos for the rest of this year would be focusing on my top reads of 2022 and also looking forward to 2023 and what is coming. I wanted to start this off with one of my favorite genres, which is YA, specifically YA fantasy, and kind of just do a roundup of all of my favorite YA fantasy books that I read this year in 2022. It is my most popular genre by far. I think it's because I just enjoy it the most. It's the genre that I have the easiest time escaping into. And also, I just read so many this year and I read so many great ones, so I want to share them all with you now. These are going to be in no particular order, but I'll start with the ones that I physically have with me first and move into the ones that I don't currently own or have with me. Okay, starting with what was one of my most highly anticipated books of the year is Hotel Magnifique. If you are someone who loves Caraval or The Night Circus, this book is going to be perfect for you. It is a lot of really fantastical, magical vibes within this transporting hotel. So basically the main character and her little sister apply to work at this hotel, and it goes to a new place every night, and like only the richest people can get into it, and they both end up working there to kind of escape this life that they have, this horrible life that they're living. And there is a magic in the hotel, but there's also tons of secrets. And so the main character, Janny, embarks on this kind of side quest, I suppose, while working in this hotel to kind of figure out what's going on, because like she was promised that she'd see her sister and now she hasn't seen her sister, and she's like, what's going on here? And like, what is this dark undercurrent underneath this beautiful exterior? It's really fun. Only a teeny tiny bit of romance, which for me was fine, but I know a lot of people read books like this for the romance, so don't read this for the romance. But if you really love familial sister stories with lots of magic and a great setting, this is such a fun read. Another one of my favorites this year was Legendborn. I feel like a lot of people have been talking about this since the sequel just came out, which I have not read yet. I had a really hard time getting into this the first time I tried reading it, and then I started reading it again this year, and I really fell in love with the story. I loved the Arthurian legends of it. I really like Bree as a main character, and it's a little bit more romance heavy than, say, like Hotel Magnifique, but I also liked that while it was important to her character, it wasn't what was really driving the plot forward. However, there's this weird like love triangle in it that honestly, when I was reading it, I didn't even realize it was supposed to be a love triangle, so maybe that says more about me than the book, but I didn't really like the other guy that she's supposed to like, and I have a feeling that's what the second book is about, so I'm like a little bit scared, but also, you know, if it's a good story, it's a good story. For me, I really love the magic system, the monsters, the action of it, and I love the legend, the Arthurian legend, that is like really the undercurrent of the story. There is some very worthwhile criticism of this book, and so if you're on the fence about reading this, definitely listen to all people who either like or dislike this book. I really liked the action sequences and the characters, but yeah, so just be aware of that. But for me, I really loved it, and I can't wait for the sequel. My next book, this was a top book of the year for me. It's technically sci-fi fantasy, and that is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first Sanderson YA book that I've picked up. Everything else I've read by him has been adult fantasy, and I was taken aback by how amazing this book was. I was expecting it to be really good, but this was like another level for me. One thing I liked about it is we have all of Sanderson's world building, his fun character quirks, his fun dialogue, wrapped up in a story that is much simpler for someone who doesn't, if you're someone who doesn't read a lot of high fantasy or even high sci-fi. Like it is sci-fi, but it doesn't always feel like a sci-fi book, if that makes sense. And I think for me, I really related to the main character. I love Spensa so much, and I think that really drove home this book for me. And I love, it's not found family, it's more like found friends, but they feel kind of like family because they're like, it's almost they're like in a military kind of, so that it's like her little battalion, I don't know exactly the word for it, but like her little cohort group of people, and they're all very different and interesting, and every character, you know, even if they seem really nice, they have a dark side to them, or if they seem really horrible, they have a really redeeming quality about them, or like something to explain all of it. I don't know. And it has all of the fun things that I love about Sanderson books. So this one for me was like a top 10 of the year. It was so fun. And if you're someone who wants to read Brandon Sanderson, but maybe books like Mistborn or The Stormlight Archive seem really off-putting to you, this might be a fun one to read, and I cannot wait to finish out this series. Next is our female revenge story that I've been talking about all year since I read it, and that is Iron Widow. This is a great female rage book. It is action-packed. It's also kind of in that sci-fi range where we have these big robot chrysalis things that we're fighting a war with. It is very much like an angry feminist story of revenge and tearing down patriarchal societies from the inside out. I cannot wait for the sequel of this book when it comes out. I probably need to reread this one so that I can read the next one. I'm so excited for it though. And look at the author photo. Like, how can you not love this person? They're so fun. And I really love this author. And it was another story that's if you're not someone who reads a lot of fantasy or sci-fi even, I feel like you'd be able to get into this one fairly easily. And I also love that it is a retelling of the only female emperor of ancient China. So that's also really cool, like a little fun history tidbit that's in here. There are a lot of liberties that the author took with the story, but like its core is based in that, which I think is really cool. The next one I have is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is the author of the Lunar Chronicles, which I haven't read yet, but after reading this, I'm pretty convinced that I would really enjoy it. It is a prequel to Alice in Wonderland where we learn the story of the Queen of Hearts, you know, the woman who's always like, off with their heads. And we learn why she's like that and about her first true love. Like, before she was this queen, she was just a 17-year-old girl who had fallen in love. A lot of this book didn't necessarily take me by surprise, if that makes sense, but I think that was also kind of the charm of it, is that you know where she ends up, and it's kind of like, how do we get to that point? How did we get there in the first place? The love interest is a court jester, which I thought was a really nice touch. Like, he's so funny, and we meet a lot of the characters that we meet in Alice in Wonderland, but this is like, you know, years and years before. So what were they like before all of that happened? We meet the caterpillar, we meet the Mad Hatter, we meet the hare, we meet the king. He's one of the main characters in this book. So it was really fun. If you're someone who likes more romance heavy, and I don't mean like erotica, like smut heavy things, because this is still YA, but if you're someone who likes things kind of like Bridgerton, where it's more about like the courting and going to balls and you know, sneaking away in the middle of the night to go do things because your parents don't approve of the person that you love, you know, kind of not really a Romeo and Juliet story, but like forbidden lovers, you know, and she's engaged to someone else. Like this is one of those kinds of books, and I just thought it was so fun. I ate this up. I can't wait to read more of her work. It was great. I loved it. Next, we have another one of my top 10 of the year, and that is A Magic Steeped in Poison. I'm still reeling about this book, and I cannot wait to read the sequel. I believe it's just a duology, so I'm kind of excited to see how this all rounds out. This one has a ton of political intrigue in it, and one of the most unique magic systems I have ever read in my life. The magic is made through the tea. So they have special ingredients that do certain things, and then you like imbue the tea with these properties, and then the person who consumes it for a short amount of time can do these things. So it can make them stronger, more confident, faster, you know, all these different things. It can also kill people. Our main character, Ning, whose sister is dying from this kind of unknown poison, and it just recently took her mother. Trained a little bit to be one of the people who can invoke magic in the tea. Not everyone can do it. But her sister was much more talented at it, but now her sister is sick. There was an announcement that there's going to be a competition for the princess of this country that they live in, and the winner of this contest will receive a wish. She wants to win this competition so that she can wish her sister to be better. So she's doing it out of like the love for her sister. But we find out pretty quickly that there's a lot more happening than they are telling us, and it is so fun. It's a competition book, so there's a lot of betrayals happening, but there's also a lot of political intrigue and stuff happening behind the scenes, and also a handsome man who maybe has some mysterious secrets of his own. So, and also just the cover, look at the cover. I'm still not over it. It's so beautiful. This was one of the best books of the year for me. I cannot wait to reread this before I read the sequel. Those are all the fantasy YA books that I have with me in person. So the rest I'm just going to be talking about, and I'll have their picture somewhere on the screen. This next one is kind of on the horror side of fantasy, but I'm still going to count it, and that's House of Hollow. We follow these three sisters who went missing when they were kids, came back, all of their hair was white and their eyes were really black, and they have like these charming qualities about them, like they can compel people to do things for them, amongst like other really weird, dark things that have kind of centered them since they've come back as children after being kidnapped. And when the oldest of the three sisters goes missing, they kind of set off to figure out what happened to her, but along the way, like, there's some pretty evil shit going down. And this book is very, very dark. I loved the way the book was written. The prose that the author used was so beautiful. And I think by far that is what made the book stand out to me so much, was just the prose and the relationship between the sisters. It was just really well done, and it always kept me guessing. It also isn't a super long read, so if you want something that's a little dark, interesting, again, we have like this like surrounding these sisters. You also want it to be a bit short. I just like, this would be a good one. It's great. I loved this book. Next I have This Poison Heart. I read this book back in the summer and it was such a perfect read for the time. This book also had the sequel just recently released, which I'm also very excited to read. So our main character, Breezes, can grow plants. They like listen to her, so when she is like walking down the street, the trees will like bend towards her because they want to be near her. And like this is just this weird thing that she's always been able to do. But she has just inherited a house, and I think they're in upstate New York. And so her and her moms go to visit this house that she's inherited, and when they get there, some weird things are going on. And the plants there are a bit weird, and the people are talking to her as if they know her, and there are some instructions that she's been told to follow. And it used to be an apothecary, so these people, like neighbors, keep coming to her for like tinctures and like other herbal remedies, and she finds out that she's really, really good at making them. But there is something very dark and dangerous blooming underneath all of this beautiful world that she's kind of discovered in this house. And I don't really want to say much more than that. It is by the same author as Cinderella is Dead, which I also have read, but I would say that I enjoyed this one so much more because the mystery surrounding it, I think it was just a much more well-rounded book, and I really, really loved the characters. I don't want to say much more than that because I really loved the little twist at the end. If you're familiar with Greek mythology at all, or old Greek plays and stories, this might be one that's really good for you as well. But that's kind of like a backseat in it. It was just kind of a fun little twist for me, I think, because I was really into it. This was such a fun book, and there's great representation in it, and this was just so much fun, and I cannot wait to read the sequel. Next one I want to talk about is Blood Like Magic. This is one that I listened to on an audiobook, and it was so much fun. In this world, I believe it takes place in Canada. In this world, the families have magic within them. It's like ancestral magic, and they all have certain gifts that they receive. And so when you reach a certain age and you are given a task by one of your ancestors, and you have to complete that task in order to receive your gift. And sometimes they're really easy, and sometimes they're very, very difficult. And our main character, Voya, is told by her ancestor that she has to destroy her first love. And it's kind of heightened because if she chooses not to complete the task, she will not receive any magic. And if she chooses to complete the task and she fails, her entire family loses all of its magic. And that's layered on with the fact that her family is kind of struggling to get by, and their gifts are the way that they make money. So a lot is on the line for her. And so she sets out to fall in love with someone, knowing that she has to destroy them in order to complete this task for her family. This book was absolutely incredible. I cannot praise this book enough. It was so much fun. Again, great representation, wonderful characters, an amazing family element that really was the core of this story and the heart of this book. And on top of that, I did not guess the ending. I kept thinking I did, and then it kept changing, and I was like, okay, whoa, this is not what I thought it was. And then it just kept getting better and better and better, and like really coming to a boiling point. And I will say this book is a master at showing how your subplots should weave into your main plot, because there's like 3 or 4 subplots going on in this book, and all of them are so perfectly woven into the story and Voya's character and her arc and the story arc. Like, it was just so well done. I loved this book, and like I think everyone needs to read it. And even though it revolves around her falling in love, I would say the romance kind of takes a backseat in this one as well. It is, again, about her journey and her family and choosing between your ancestry and what's right. Like, it was beautiful. It was so good. I cried. So those are all of my top YA fantasy books for the year. Let me know what some of your favorite fantasy books were that you read this year. I would love to hear from you, and if I haven't read them, I'd love to read them. Thank you, as always, so much for watching and for being here. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more of my writing and bookish content, please feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one.